Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues. And with this video, we'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 6 of the anime series, Plastic Memories. And this was a beautiful and beautifully paced episode, I have to say. There was a recent anime series that I covered in Episodic Reviews, Kantai Collection, which I became a pretty big fan of, but I definitely had issues with some of the mixing of the episodes, the going, between the contrasts of comedy and hilarity and the drama and everything like that. I really didn't feel in several places for that particular series it was well mixed. And this episode is the perfect antithesis and the perfect answer for what I mean when I say an episode can be beautifully edited and beautifully mixed together and representative of all of those emotions. The laughter, the comedy, the high intensity, the drama, the tearjerker elements of the story and everything like that. All of that was represented in this episode in pitch perfect fashion. As soon as we begin, we're basically being ushered in to the emotion and inquisitive nature of where we left off, as far as, what happened at the end of that cliffhanger with Tsukasa, with Ida, what was Kazuki's reaction going to be, and was somebody harmed, that kind of thing. And we do find, sort of playing back, we don't get the answer right away, but sort of playing back on that left open theme of the relationship between Ida and Kazuki, what led them to disband, what led Kazuki to steer away from being her partner, what event led to this, in other words. We're basically given the answer that, for whatever reason, Ida was becoming less, focused and less effective on the job, and thus, basically you had Kazuki going out into the field without her. And she paid for it, in a sense, by losing her leg because of, what we basically saw with Mishiru's father and everything, becoming a wanderer, all that kind of stuff. And so you have Kazuki very much reevaluating the scenario, working with Ida and not being able to necessarily put the full lengths of her trust into Ida and her effectiveness in this, basically terminal service, going after Giftia's job. And from right there, we're given those answers, and we're finding out, well, Ida's actually okay. She was kind of wounded in the heat of trying to go after the Marcia Giftia and, everything that happened with the little boy Sota. And so she's been recuperating, and Tsukasa has not wanted to leave her side because of the functionality of their business. He did have to be held accountable, even though he technically wasn't, responsible and everything. So they basically made him stay at his desk for a little while. But in between, he's going and visiting Ida and staying with her all night long. And she finally comes to, and her chief sort of quandary is, how can Tsukasa rebound and smile again and find his smile? And it's kind of like almost playing on the same kind of themes that you had in Star Trek The Next Generation with the android Data, who wanted to become human, wanted to feel human emotions, and couldn't always comprehend how human beings, could react to things that were so terrible, and rebound and find sort of, the power to move on. And that's just something we as human beings, we do. Even in the face of tragedy, we collectively sometimes join together, sometimes it's of our own volition, but we find the strength within ourselves to keep on moving. Charlie Chaplin wrote a beautiful, eloquent song, Smile Though Your Heart Is Breaking. And a lot of this episode, I was thinking of that song because Ida's chief concern is, how can Tsukasa keep moving and smile and all of that stuff. And it was just beautiful that they kind of paired up Mishiru to kind of explain that to her. Of course, after a whole comedic sequence where Eru is trying to get, Ida, basically because now it seems like she has a romantic interest in Tsukasa. Oh, well, let's spy on him. Let's see what he's up to and all this stuff. Love that entire sequence. I love when the Giftia Sherry, throws the pen from yards and yards away, and it goes right through the binocular glass. Like she sniped them basically for watching them. But it was hilarious, all of that. And like I say, you have Mishiru, who it seems like she herself has some kind of interest in Tsukasa, and she's in denial, you know, as all great tsunderes do. You know, she's sort of angsty and getting up in his face, but she does like him, and she's put off by the idea, Eru's conception and misconception, that Ida has romantic feelings for Tsukasa. Of course, we do find out that there's a reason why Ida has this suspicion. It's not just Eru's doing, you know, as far as putting that bug in her mind about Tsukasa's reacting to her and caring about her. But so you basically have this scenario where we find out from Mishiru that what Tsukasa has done against orders, against Kazuki's, you know, telling him to stay at his desk, he went and revisited the boy Sota. And it was just, it pulled me right back in, and it got me misty-eyed once again when he's apologizing to Sota about what happened to Marcia. The boy was unconscious, so he doesn't understand what exactly took place. He hasn't been given the answers, and it's tragic. And for whatever reason, you can only assume that, you know, that sort of element of humanity where we find the inner strength and we move on. Those two coming together, those two embracing, you know, sharing in the sorrow of the aftermath of this, you know, scenario, both of them probably rebounded from it. And that's probably why Tsukasa can move on, has moved on, is smiling. And, you know, he's also concerned with Ida. I don't think she's even considered that. The fact that she's back on the job, he's happy. Even in the face of tragedy, we can be happy. It's not against the law, you know. However we feel, we can overcome the dark, sorrowful, angry feelings, whatever it is. And so, at the end, you know, we're basically seeing this confrontation where Kazuki is basically telling Ida, it's up to Tsukasa whether or not you should be back on the job. You know, we know what the riskiness of your doing so, what that all amounts to. But it's up to him, isn't it? You know, like Ida's questioning, should I just quit? And we have a conversation between Kazuki and Tsukasa that Ida is inadvertently overhearing when Tsukasa doesn't come back to their apartment, or their dorm, whatever you want to call it. And I just thought this was absolutely eloquent and beautiful, and it lived up to every one of my speculations and just call to this character, what I wanted this character to do. You know, when confronted with that question and the reality of the fact that Ida's only got a month and change, as Kazuki puts it, do you still want to work with her? Do you still want to be her partner or have her as your partner? And unequivocally, Tsukasa, he doesn't even have to think about it. I want to be with her to the end. And if you go back a video or two, I don't remember which episode I was talking about, it must have been the last one, I said I believed he would be, unlike Kazuki, he would be there with her to the end. He'd fight to stay by her side to the end. That's exactly what he did. And I was just juiced. I was pumped because of that smile you see on Ida's face when she overhears this. And then I love, at the very tail end, post-credits, we have this little sequence where we find out, you know, like halfway through the episode, we saw that Ida was reading a book about, like, the lovey-dovey lover's manual, or whatever the hell it's called. And so she's got this bug still planted in her head, like, Tsukasa must really want to get with her, you know? So at the very tail end, you have that comedic sequence where she's just like, well, after this, do you want to have dinner? Do you want to go take a bath? Or do you want you know, and he just loses it, and like, I'm losing it. I just laughed out loud. I played that over a couple of times because it was that damn funny. And by the end, like I say, you know, their job will continue. They will continue to be partners. He's going to find ways, I'm assuming, of bridging that gap and trying to make the most out of the scenario for Ida and make her feel good and everything like that. There may be further tensions arising between Tsukasa and Mishiru because of her potential interest in him. And I can almost forecast in my mind, at least, like, you know, at some point, Ida will have to go the way of the dodo. She will have to fade out. She will have to, you know, everyone around her will have to move on. And I almost have to wonder, in the face of that loss, might we see the budding interest Mishiru has for Tsukasa, might we see them come together? Something that's, you know, it would be a very realistic way for this to play out. But that's just my speculation at this point. And as I say, you know, it was a beautifully mixed episode. You had the tension and the unease and the sort of inquisitive topic of what happened since the last episode. This was followed through to a bit light, you know, more lighthearted sequence of comedy, but it still had an underlining feel of like unease and potential sadness, because you knew something was going on with Ida. You didn't know if she was going to be taken out of the equation as far as she can't be on the job and in the field anymore and all that stuff. And to make it very personal and relate it back to what happened between, you know, Tsukasa and the boy Sota, how that relates to Ida and Mishuru, and then capping it all off with a sort of affirming ending and then a just hilarity at the end. Just so well paced. Such a beautiful, awesome episode. And that's pretty much all I can say about it. So I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of episode 6 of Plastic Memories, if you've seen it, if you were as wowed by it as I was, if you were sort of riding that wave of the back and forth of all the emotions going on, the laughter, the drama, as I say, or if it left you feeling flat. I mean, for some people, you know, this kind of scenario isn't going to work for them. It's not going to work for everybody, and I could be in a minority for all I know. But yeah, that's why I love having the conversation back and forth. And as long as there's no sort of spoilery material based on the source material, as I always ask, I love having the conversation. So otherwise, that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.